Sincere apologies, but we are here now and it's time for ATN Blowout, everyone. ATN Blowout is a syndicated live program of the network where we hold conversation on special interest topics to bring you news, events, and stories through correspondent reports, expert opinions, and of course, stakeholders analysis. On the show this morning, our first point of call will go to Bayelsa State, where PDP is accusing APC of armed attacks against members. We'll look at issue on subsidy removal. University of Ibadan cuts work days. And on petrol subsidy, presidency says no plan to return subsidy in increase PMS price. On Senate, National Assembly management says 2 million per senator is statutory, not largest. And the nation building, House of Reps Speaker detail why anti-corruption fight falters. On Election Tribunal, ACON dissolves vetting panel over anti-judiciary billboard advert. On DSS versus Emefiele, federal government to withdraw illegal postal thieves. Our resource persons on the show this morning will have Ugochukwu Oputa. He's here as a public affairs analyst, and Ene Eric Ibifa. He is a lecturer with English Department, University of Port Harcourt. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll get to meet our resource persons and we head on to the show. And welcome back to ATN Blowout. Let's talk about dissolving of the federal government, dissolving of the advertisement panel, advertising panel. But let me welcome Ene Eric Ibifa to ATN Blowout. Good to have you here today.
Oh, great to be here, Vivian.
Now, the federal government has dissolved the advertising standard panel for approving the trending all eyes on the judiciary billboards. The director General of the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria, Dr. Olalekan Fado-Lakbo, confirmed the dissolution of the panel in a statement on Tuesday. The billboard is perceived to be blackmailing the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, the ASP, in the statutory panel under the council charged with the duty of ensuring that advertisements conform to the prevailing laws of the Federation, as well as the Code of Advertising Ethics of the Advertising Profession. Fado-Lakbo said the Council has also suspended its Director and Deputy Director in charge of regulations to allow investigations into the issue. The statement said the attention of the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria has been drawn to the all eyes on the judiciary advertisement exposed on some billboards across the country. The Advertising Standards Panel of the Council also erred in the approval of one of the concepts as the advertisement failed to vet guidelines on the following grounds. The cost forming the central theme of the campaign in the advertisement is a matter pending before the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. Hence, its jus pendis. A matter being jus pendis and awaiting judicial pronouncement is, by virtue of the Nigerian legal system, precluded from being a subject of public statement, debate, discussion, advertisement, etc. The advertisement is controversial and capable of instigating public unrest and breach of public peace. The advertisement is considered blackmail against the Nigerian judiciary, the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, and particularly the honorable justices of the tribunal, who are expected to discharge their judicial functions without fear or favor over a matter that is currently jus pendis. I want to start this from the point where the piece said that should not discuss or do anything about a matter that the judiciary by the diaspora, a group Diaspora for Good Governance. I'm wondering, like I said, we're sitting down on a presidential election tribunal, We're taking a hazard, is a guess. You're trying to figure out your opinion. You think the court is going to do this, you think the court is going to do this, this is what you think. It is not what you're saying it should be. I'm trying to draw an inference from that by saying all eyes on the judiciary. Why is this going to put pressure on them?
Well, I don't see where the pressure is coming from. The task before the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal is already sufficiently pressure-inducing. So I don't see how this amounts to additional pressure. In fact, it's a statement, it's really a statement of fact, because we know that Nigerians are really, really interested, keenly interested in what is going on at the Presidential Elections Petitions Tribunal. So it's surprising that this should make anyone uncomfortable. It's surprising that this should settle anyone. I think this is a form of censorship that we have to be very, very careful about, because you see, attempts to muzzle free expression. Free expression is one of the cornerstones of democracy, and that's why in the United States, which is now considered the beacon of liberal democracy today, that's the very first amendment to the American Constitution, the right to free speech. I don't see how this amounts to putting pressure on the judiciary. Well, I mean, in this country, we've seen instances where newspapers even speculated that, I think it was during the Babangida era, the president had bought for Supreme Court justices. And then some newspaper, I think it was Concord, defunct now, went to town with the story that it was an attempt to bribe the judges. In fact, it so embarrassed the government that I think the government insisted that Chief Abiola, the owner of the paper, should fire those concerned with that story. I think in the end, Abiola caved in, asked them to apologize. In anger, they left and started another crusading magazine called The News. So it's not new. Whenever the nation faces a problem such as we face now, people turn to the judiciary. People are, more than, or people become unusually vigilant about what is going on in the judicial arm of government. So I don't see that amounting to mounting pressure on anyone. Rather, it's part of the role that citizens play. I mean, the citizen is an office, and so citizens have a right, they have a duty, as a matter of fact, to be vigilant, because that's the only way to sustain democracy.
All right.
And what the Presidential Elections Tribunal is doing is something that is so consequential that the worst thing anybody can do now is to begin to insist that the action should be, shrouded in secrecy. There is need for public attention to be beamed repeatedly on what is going on there, because I mean that has a consequence for the survival of our democracy. I think we should be careful. This kind of action is not the kind of action we should see repeat itself, because I mean censorship begins this way, and if you're not careful, nobody knows in what direction it's going to snowball. Nobody knows what is going to be next, because it starts like this.
I tried my best to get any of their members to be on the show this morning, but unfortunately, we didn't succeed in doing that. But here is now it started by saying that the advertisement is controversial. No, it started by saying that it should such a issue should not there should not be a public statement, debate, discussion, advertisement. And before I go to the issue being a controversial and capable of instigating public unrest, before I come to that, what I'm trying to, this advertising agency, regulatory and of Nigeria. So I'm trying to figure out here, what is ACON talking about? If you are saying that it should not be discussed, it should not be discussed for public debate and all of that, excuse me again, what exactly is the role of the media? To educate, to inform, to entertain. Okay, let's leave the part of entertainment on the subject matter. How do you educate? How do you inform? A part of informing the people is sensitization. If I put up a billboard to sensitize the country, I put up a billboard to I'm trying to figure out why, if you are saying, let me quickly bring back what their demands here. It said first, it should not be discussed. They should not be part of a public debate. If it's not going to be part of public debate, I like to understand, if we're not going to discuss it, if it's not going to be debated about, the outcome of the judiciary, is ACON not taking our rights away from us as media practitioners? And by this such action, are they not taking our rights away from us as citizens of this country? If a very crucial matter that affects us is being deliberated on, they have done with they have put in their witnesses. It has been adopted by the tribunal. We're waiting for the outcome of that, and people are saying, bringing sensitivity into the conversation to say, all eyes on the judiciary. On what grounds exactly is ACON telling us that this should not be discussed because it's jurisprudence, because it's in the courts? What about our rights, professionally speaking, to talk about this, to bring this to the fore? What about our rights as Nigerians to raise issues and awareness on issues that directly affect us? Maybe you can help us to make better sense of this if you can find any.
Well, it's difficult to see in what sense one can justify this kind of action. Well, you just pointed out the role of the media, because, I mean, if these things can be reported in newspapers, why is that? How is that different from putting them up on billboards? Because, I mean, the billboard is simply a medium, just like the newspaper, just like television, just like radio. So it's just, I mean, what is it about the proceedings of the Presidential Elections Petitions Tribunal that makes it mandatory for it to be concealed from public view? I mean, what those guys are offering is public service. They are serving the interest of the public, supposedly.
Every information in the tribunal is in public domain.
Exactly. So
the written addresses, the presentation of the cases, we have all had that in the media. Well, for now, while the Judiciary Tribunal is doing their job, we are waiting for them, our eyes on them. The second part of that conversation, they said, is that is considered as, that is controversial, is considered as blackmail against the Nigerian judiciary. Let's even leave the aspect of the blackmail. What makes it controversial?
The question is, words that are controversial are also relative. I mean, what's controversial about it? The elections themselves are controversial. So it's natural that the outcomes, the judicial process arising from the elections are bound to stir up controversy. Is this another way of saying that whatever subject that is controversial should not be made, the subject of media content? So it's difficult to understand what rationale there is for this action. And frankly, the argument put out by the body that suspended the panel,
vetting panel,
doesn't sound convincing in any sense at all. It seems to me that somebody does is to maintain standards in the media, and I don't see how this action amounts to the maintenance of standards at all. What I see here is an attempt to muzzle free expression. because you're not comfortable with the content or with the issue being expressed, the opinion being canvassed.
So again, just to wrap this up, looking at all of the issues and points they've raised, and then whose interests is are conserving?
Well, they should serve the national interest, but frankly
In
speaking,
this case right now.
yeah, it's difficult to see how this, I don't know whose interest exactly it is serving, but I don't see how this serves the national interest, because as a matter of fact, anything that, draws the public attention to the actions going on at the Election Petitions Tribunal amounts to proper public service. Because if you don't do that, if you muzzle reportage on, if you put some kind of limit on reportage on what is going on, then you create room for speculations. Indeed, and speculations have even begun to fester. You heard the story about people who claim that the former Minister of Works, Babatunde Raji Fashola,
Yep.
is the one writing the judgment for the
Mary
tribunal.
Audley was also accused of the same
Oh
thing.
yeah, it is usually because, it's possible that if the tribunal had allowed its proceedings to be captured on camera, it's possible that there would have been more transparency. Nigerians would have seen what was going on there, and there wouldn't be room for these kinds of speculations. So, contrary to what this organization is putting out here, I think it's even greater coverage that takes care of, matters of speculation, that, causes, it is greater, wider coverage that restores confidence in proceedings like the one we are seeing at the Election Petitions Tribunal.
Quite interesting there. Well, they have sacked town people's billboard. Let's see, maybe what are the follow-up actions? Because this was so shocking to me that I wanted to have their members come on the show to actually explain what exactly we're dealing with here. So you mean, well, let's hope that there's more on that conversation, on this issue as we make progress. Maybe someone can give a better understanding, maybe give a better perspective on all of this. But now let's get to Bayelsa State. The People's Democratic Party has raised alarm over armed attacks targeted at its supporters and residents of Opunembe community of Bayelsa State by uniformed thugs suspected to be members of the opposition All Progressive Congress National Publicity Secretary of the PDP, Honorable Debo Ologunagba, raised the alarm at a media briefing in Abuja of the All Progressive Congress resort to violent attacks on communities in Bayelsa State for rejecting its candidate in the November 11, 2023 governorship election. The immediate past Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Chief Timi Priye Silva, the PDP in the strongest term condemns the invasion, killing and maiming of innocent citizens in Bayelsa State communities, particularly Opunembe in Nembe local government area by thugs, allegedly recruited, sponsored and armed by Chief Timi Priye Silva. It is clear that the intention of the APC in this invasion and killing in Nembe is to intimidate and instill fear in the people so as to prevent them from freely exercising their democratic right to vote a governor of their choice, having realized that there is no way their candidate, Chief Timi Priye Silva, can win in a peaceful, free and fair election in Bayelsa State. The PDP said they are alarmed by pictorial and video evidence of the gruesome murder of promising Nembe youth, including the only son of a widow by the APC thugs, allegedly led by one Kojo Sam, who on February 15, 2023, killed 3 youths in the bid to subdue the community for openly expressing the rejection of Chief Silva for neglecting and allegedly unleashing violence on their communities over the years. Ologunagba, it says that reports in the public domain have it that the thugs are usually lodged in a hotel owned by Chief Timi Priye Silva's ally, from where the assassins periodically launch gun attacks on the communities for rejecting the APC. So, following the meeting of Timi Priye Silva to see the President of Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu, when he came out days after that meeting, we began to hear that Tinubu promised him that he's going to do all within his power, even if it means using the military, so Silva to win election. Some persons were caught in the video celebrating that, and then that has brought back all of the issues that may have played out, like Jabo said, sometime in February, and now it's ensuing violent attack against the PDP, allegedly by the party. Let's get to bring you in here and help us to look at this from the side by side to ask, if indeed the president made that statement, if indeed Silva made that statement, and it's turning out to be this dragging a lot of negative energy to him, isn't it time for him to speak up to say, actually, this was misconstrued? This is not what I mean. So that was the tension that seemed to be taking effect now.
Well, since there is no evidence anywhere of the president uttering those words, we take it that those are mere speculations. And of course, if you're conversant with the trend in Nigerian politics, you know that there's a tendency for political opponents to, impute or attribute all kinds of ill motives, all kinds of vile intentions to the actions of their opponents. So I guess this is all part of the gimmicks of, politics in Nigeria. However, the more substantial issue here for me is the fact that, 24 years into the practice of democracy, we do not seem to have imbibed the ethos of democracy. Democracy is actually a way of life. There is something about democracy. Democracy is not just theoretical. There are practical aspects of democracy. There are attitudes, there are dispositions that conduce to democracy. And over time, one would have expected that Nigerians across the spectrum, whether they are voters or political players themselves, like candidates and party officials and so on, would have imbibed some of these ethos. Unfortunately, given what we are facing now, it does seem to me that we are nowhere near imbibing those ethos, at least not to a level sufficiently appreciable when you consider that we've been practicing this, or we've been at this for 24 years. I think it's also important to state that the PDP also has a responsibility to provide proof, because it is one making the allegations here. I would have been more comfortable if, in addition to addressing the press, or as part of its press statement, the PDP states or advised that it was going to petition the IG of police with evidence to get the IG to investigate this matter and then mete out sanctions where necessary. I think that seems to me like a more profitable way to go. Otherwise, yeah, violence is condemnable, but as it is now, nobody knows for sure those who are responsible for it. We've seen instances in this country where, members of a political party or members of a faction of a political party mete out violence or perpetrate violence, inflict violence on innocent voters or innocent citizens, and then turn around to attribute that to their opponents. It's what politicians do best, and of course, it's sad, but I think in this situation, the proper thing for the PDP to do is to petition the IG of police, and also for the APC candidate, Honorable Timothy Silva. I think when these allegations have been made against you, you have a responsibility as someone who cares about your reputation to come out to deny them. I also understand that part of the problem is that sometimes you may feel that some of these allegations are so manifestly untrue that you don't feel obligated to come out to deny them, because you assume that once you deny one, then you'll be obligated to continue to deny all the rest. And chances are that if you then turn yourself into a perennial denier of these kinds of things, then you won't do anything else. You just spend the rest of your productive time denying, rumors put out by your opponents. But I think this matter ought to be addressed, because it is a matter that has implications for the elections. Chances are that if this trend continues, we are going to see voter apathy in the governorship elections in Bayelsa, because nobody wants to risk their lives to come out to vote for any candidate. And of course, democracy is about public participation. Anything that constrains that public participation amounts to a threat to democracy. And it seems to me that violence is the chief threat to democracy as we practice it in Nigeria. So my appeal will be to all political players in Bayelsa State to play by the rules, to ensure that there is true violence. Political players, especially at the top level, who wield influence over their supporters, have a responsibility, have an obligation to also talk to their voters and make them see the need to play by the rules.
Now, here there's an interesting aspect of this that I observe, and that's these comments allegedly coming from the videos where the women and people were rejoicing and went on the news that this is what the president is going to do for them and all of that. I find it interesting that even now, the APC candidate is yet to address this issue. If you look back in Rivers State and understand how much violence was meted out on the people and how we lost precious innocent lives during the elections, and this is all courtesy to the vituperations of the former governor of Rivers State. He made all kinds of make una put head. If if you something like if you so something puts head, if you think you're strong, it's not puts head. All of these are in public domain. These vituperations cost Rivers State a lot, and we're just talking about Bayelsa here. There's another state that is also vulnerable to some of these influences, political influences. And to me, Brace Silva have been known for relatively having some of these thuggery acts and reports around him over time. It's interesting that no lesson was learned from Rivers State, probably because there are no consequences yet. And now you're seeing Bayelsa State happening again, that, and then Silva not seeing any reason to speak up on that and to push for that. Now, let me put it across by saying, even without going to the police, do you think that the police should begin to sound clear warning right now to Bayelsans, irrespective of party affiliation, in respect to November 11?
Yeah, to the extent that the police has that obligation to maintain law and order, I think that's one of the things the police could do under the situation. But there has to be plausible reason for police intervention in this matter, and in some cases, it's also part of the obligation of the political players to also alert the police to instances of violence, anything that would lead to a breakdown of law and order, especially with something as important as gubernatorial elections just around the corner. I think the police has a responsibility to nip it in the bud. Now, there are two ways the police can come in. Sometimes, if the instances of violence are so manifest that everyone can see them, then I think the police has an obligation to come in at that point. Another way to do it is through petitioning. That's why I said the PDP, in addition to putting these things out in the public domain via a press statement or a press conference, also has the responsibility to go a step further by alerting the police, by petitioning the IG of police or the Commissioner of Police by Bayelsa State. And then, that way it's out of their hands. It's up to the public to now begin to mount pressure on the police to take action, either to avert this, what seems like, an impending or an imminent breakdown of law and order. That's the only way to do this. Otherwise, I don't think there's any other way out of it. You don't expect people to resort to self-help. Once people resort to self-help, the net effect will be that we are going to have anarchy. So the best way to avert that kind of breakdown, because of course, members of the PDP, who in this case allegedly seems to be at the receiving end of this violence, could then decide to take reprisal action. The result is that one violence will beget another round of violence, and there will be no end to this. So the best thing to do, from my own perspective, is to simply involve the police and then allow the law to take its course, allow those who are constitutionally mandated to maintain law and order, to forestall the breakdown of law and order, to intervene in this matter and then discharge their constitutional responsibility.
All right, thank you. And we'll take a short break, everyone. When we come back, we'll have several other conversations for you, but stay with us. ATM Blowout returns after the break.
people into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
You human trafficker.
Honorable They are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
So no agreement with the EU, but
Welcome back to ATN Blowout, and we're just being joined by a very own Ugochukwu Oputa. Good to have you join us today.
Good morning, Vivian. Good morning, Nigeria.
So let's get to talk about University of Ibadan. The University of Ibadan on Monday directed that work days will be reduced from 5 to 3 for every worker in the school. This, according to the university management, is following the astronomical increase in fuel pump prices. This was revealed in a statement issued by the institution dated August 14, 2023, and signed by G.O. Saliu, Registrar and Secretary to Council. The statement said the astronomical increase in the fuel pump price occasioned by the removal of subsidy by the federal government has imposed huge economic difficulties on the generality of Nigerians. As they said, salary earners who have to commute to work every day, every working day, are faced with an aggravation of the condition given the attendant hike in the transport fare and cost of living. After careful consideration of the situation, the university management recommended a temporary work schedule adjustment for members of staff, which Senate at its meeting on Thursday, 03 August 2023, considered and approved. Accordingly, members of staff are now expected to work on site for 3 days in rotation per week, with effect from Monday, 14 August 2023. It should, however, be noted that those on essential duties are exempted from this adjustment. It should be further noted that management will review the arrangement as the situation improves. But let me come to you quickly, Ene. This conversation about reducing work day is supposed to be 5 days to 3 days. First, what is it going to do for lecturers in terms of, okay, it might improve, help support their transportation and welfare, basically. But what is it going to do? What about their workload? Courses they teach on these days and all of that, how are they going to cram everything together? Because in some schools, we know the number of students in some of these universities, how it's even difficult sometimes to get a lecture hall or a lecture day fixed. So if this is noble, we understand the university's position, but how much impact is this going to have on the lecturers in terms of their workload and the students as well?
Okay, lecturers, I don't think the impact is going to be significant. And there's some ambiguity here. I think this statement is directed more at the administrative and non-academic staff, clerical staff, and so on and so forth. I doubt if it will have any, bearing on lecturers. But if you say that, it's going to be for all members of staff, including the academic staff, then you're simply saying that lecture timetables also will be designed.
Yeah,
in such
that's
a way
what they said.
No, but I doubt if it's going to happen that way. So students will have lectures from Monday to Friday. In some universities, lectures are even held on Saturdays. Maybe Saturday will be, removed now. But I don't think it's going to, by the nature of the job that lecturers do, they work around the clock. So when you're not in the office, you're also working at home. You have student scripts to grade. You have candidates you're supervising for first degree, masters, and so on and so forth, dissertations and theses you have to supervise. That you can take home and work with. But I think the spirit behind this is noble. But I think there are other ways of getting the same result without this. For example, there's no way this isn't going to affect productivity in the university, even if you restrict it to the non-academic staff. So one way to do it is the university can also come out with a mass transit scheme where they put out buses on campus for intra-campus movement at subsidized rates, or even station buses at strategic places within the city exclusively for their staff buses. So if you understand that, if you notice there's a concentration of your staff in one part of town, you could have a bus, that departs from there. So people will come from their homes, board the bus from there, and then get to school. These are unusual times, and as they say, unusual times call for unusual measures. So I understand why the universities are apprehensive, but the university should also go the whole hog in this kind of situation. It's contradictory for me that the same university, I'm not talking specifically about the University of Ibadan now, but that the university as a whole in Nigeria is talking about, workers reducing work hours or working days to 3 instead of 5. And then the same universities also require the federal government to restrain them from jacking up tuition. I mean, if you're interested in, taking care of the welfare, the well-being of all stakeholders in the university, one of the most critical will be students. So you shouldn't even require the federal government to tell you that at the very least you should leave the tuition or the charges where they are and not look for a way to raise them. I think it took the federal government intervention, for example, to restrain the University of Lagos from jacking up its charges. I think we should think of a comprehensive response to this and not this kind of staggered knee-jerk response where something happened and then you just react to it, and then all of these are just tentative measures. We think of a more comprehensive way to tackle this matter, and that will mean really getting everybody on board in decision making. I mean, you talk to the students' union, know what the challenges of the students are. You talk to ASU, know what the challenges of the academic staff are. You talk to SANU and NASU and other critical stakeholders in the university system and come up with a comprehensive approach, make concessions where concessions are necessary. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you on this, Amy. I'm coming to you, Ugochukwu. if you look at the indices around, yes, we agree there is need to provide some form of support system. But cramming this on lecturers who already are overworked, cramming this on the school system that is already overstretched by reducing the work hours, okay? Because you're not even, it's not like they're employing more lecturers here. They are just saying work less. There is the academic calendar to cover. Of course, there are exams and all of that. There is also the students who you're just thinking about the lecturers, which is okay, but what about the welfare of the students and how all of this, because they also need to come to school. If you put in all of this side by side and then you ask yourself, as we just read in the news 2 days ago, was donating money to IDP. That shocked me. Like, Asu, you have money to donate to IDP. I'm like, that was like, where is that coming from? I had to read that again, and I saw that you're actually donating money to IDP. In as much as maybe there's an aspect of their organization or union that gives room for that. Couldn't there have been by now, couldn't there have been a holistic view on what to do to mitigate the challenges that Nigerians are facing right now within the school system? Shouldn't ASU have by now come up with a plan on what should be and how it should be, being that this is something that affects everyone?
Vivian, you see, the current situation we're going through in this country is one that can be likened to the pandemic situation of 2020. Financially, families are drained and stretched. Financially, individuals are barely surviving. And what gives me worry is the possible spike of crime. Because when people are pushed to a point where they can rarely fend for themselves, they would want to, survival is like a natural instinct. They want to apply any way to survive. And so I appreciate the University of Ibadan coming up with this novel idea. And I think that's what universities are known for across the globe. They are the ones that chart the course. And I think it's a novel idea. And I think that the entire workforce of this country should adopt a hybrid approach. I know of a school where the lecturer adopts a hybrid approach. She has both a WhatsApp platform, a Facebook platform, and also the classroom approach. And so information that could be disseminated virtually should be disseminated virtually. The COVID-19 situation taught us a whole lot that the world can work virtually. And we adopted it. My kids went to followed up their classes through Zoom. They were sent assignments via WhatsApp. So I think that given the unique situation, because we have a subsidy that by all intentions we should remove, by all good intentions should not be there, and then we have the backlash and the effects on the populace. Why we're calling out the government to implement mitigating measures that would lessen this burden on Nigerians. It's also good that we have this sort of approach. Companies should look at the way to lessen this burden, because beyond transportation to the workplace and back, there are other costs that, like the popular say that once you leave your house, you jam debit alert. The only thing you'll be hearing throughout the day is savings or current account. So there are always costs that follows these people coming out. And I think it's a novel idea that should be adopted by other MDAs. And I heard of a state government that Edo State, that said they were going to reduce working days for the civil service. It's a time that requires austerity measures, and moves like this should be encouraged. However, the area that is not clear for me is they said in a rotational basis, meaning that the school might still function for the 5 working days, but the workforce will take turns in 3 days. So if the school still functions for 5 working days, then some persons are not taken into account, like the students, meaning the students will come for 5 working days, other running costs will still be there for 5 working days, So I think all this should be factored in. And also an important point raised by my colleague here is that the mass transit is important. If that mass transit can factor Nigerians across board, I believe about 25 to 30% of this burden has been would have been taken care of. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ene. Oh, sorry. Ugochukwu. Now, but let's get on with all of the conversation, hoping that those concerned will come together and have a holistic view on what should be done and how. The Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Tope Ajayi, on Tuesday said there were no plans by the administration of President Bola Tinubu to reintroduce fuel subsidy. Ajayi made the assertion on X, formerly known as Twitter. He said there is no plan to reintroduce any form of fuel subsidy. There is no condition to support any increase in prices at this time. President Tinubu is convinced, based on information before him, that we can maintain current pricing without reversing the current deregulation policy by swiftly cleaning up existing inefficiencies within the midstream and downstream petroleum sector. Ajayi's comment followed news about a temporary reintroduction of fuel subsidy following the increment in the landing cost of fuel due to the free fall of the naira in the parallel market. Nigeria has continued to grapple with this soaring cost of living due to the removal of subsidy on the petroleum and the unification of the naira at both the I and A window and parallel markets by Central Bank of Nigeria. Well, on Monday, the independent oil market has hinted at a possible increase in the cost of fuel owing to the increment in landing cost of the product. I'll come back to you, Ene. So, Ugochukwu, this conversation now, there will be no increase in in petroleum cost of PMS, pump price, and all of that. Oh, we understand. No plan to return subsidy. The president hinted on that yesterday, but his aide is coming out to say there is no plan. Okay, fine. Let's talk about the other one, the increase itself. The independent marketers, as at today, dollar is about 1,000 naira. Okay, $1 exchange about 1,000 naira. So now the other time they told us that market forces determine the price.
True.
And not the government. Okay, now, if we're looking at all of this, so we have a free market. So I can buy my product and sell at a convenient cost. And now the federal government, on the other hand, is who say they don't control the prices. It's also telling us that there will be no increase. How realistic is this? Because they are not paying subsidy to these people. They do the importation themselves with their money. And it's like the federal government is trying to say, even if you buy it at 1,000 naira, you must sell it at 617 naira. How realistic is this, if you may?
If there is any benchmark or any control of the pricing, it's subsidy back in disguise. The market is no longer free. However, what we're seeing clearly is that this market is being controlled by the strength of naira against the dollar or the weakness thereof. And if that continues, it means that we're still going to have a rising fuel price. But what can be done? The problem here is strengthening the naira. You know, and I watched an analysis somewhere where someone highlighted that the reason why naira is weakest at this point is because a whole lot of persons are embarking on summer trips. They are, people are, the demand for dollar, it's more higher now. I know, but I think if we're looking at tackling the weakness of naira, just how Nigerians are suffering from this effect of subsidy removal, there should be measures too that can curtail some of these excesses by the, people we call, because there's no middle class now, by the rich class, because some of them are the ones that have access to these bulk dollars. It should not be easy to take actions that affect the lower class, but then those actions that are supposed to checkmate how these persons expend dollars and their demands of dollars are neglected. This is time for strict measures. If there is a way to stop some of these persons traveling abroad, these people that are these heavyweights that spend dollars in thousands and millions, this should be implemented now, because they are harming our naira. They are harming our naira, and it's no longer the time where there was a benchmark or the CBN was controlling this price. Gone are those days. Now, whatever you do, the effects are shared across Nigerians, across board, up to the hinterland. And so it's important that the CBN should be bold enough, the federal government should be bold enough to bring in strict measures that would curtail these overlords, rich class, the billionaires that are taking these dollars away and creating this spike in dollar and the weakness of naira. It is important because now whatever we tell to the marketers, the amount of how they exchange dollar for naira and how they buy their product is what they'll sell to Nigerians. So I think, however, there is a clause there where they said they are going to regularize the downstream sectors and all. You know, maybe some hitches that impose some extra cost on the marketers, they might look for a way to remove that. That can also affect the end cost. But then the major fact is we cannot use the dollar and then there's no, it's all solutions are just plastic. And why this conversation of temporary subsidy, introduction of subsidy is there, because if fuel should rise to 800 naira, then I don't think Nigeria can hold it again anymore, because there would be no option than to step in and save the situation. I heard is it Kenya also that implemented that removed subsidy, and yeah, Kenya. So if the situation goes worse, the federal government would have no option than to reintroduce subsidy. The role of government, the way security and protection of life and properties of the populace, and so you cannot be storing food while people die of starvation.
Okay, again, I'm bringing back the question. Let's get your perspective on this as well. The free market is the beauty of trading, as a matter of fact. It puts the competition into where it should. It leaves it basically the freedom of choice, where there is no union determining what happens and all of that. But the federal government is also making this statement of we're not going to increase, there's not going to be, in fact the statement said even if they buy at a certain price that there will not be increase. How fair are they being to those who actually import this product? And like also wrap it up with what Ugochukwu said, which is if we ever get to the point where fuel sells not even 1,000, sells for 800, he do not think that the federal government have what it takes to manage the chaos that will come forth for that. So this is looking like it's trying to manipulate the market forces, which you said you don't have control over, into determining what they do and what. Don't you think is looking like is an avenue to other excuse to go back to subsidy, payment of subsidy?
Well, the idea of a free market seems to me like even an anomaly to start with, because, I mean, there's no market that is absolutely free. Even in the, if you like, the countries you may consider paragons of capitalism, which is where the concept of free market comes from, you find that government intervenes from time to time to protect the weak and vulnerable in society. One way government does that intervention is subsidy, especially in the so-called social sectors, healthcare and education. So it's surprising to me that in an economy like ours, where we are told that over 70% of the population are multidimensionally poor and therefore would need, perennial injection of some kind of buffer in the form of subsidy. The government is thinking about, leaving something as sensitive as petrol prices to something as irrational, if you like, something as freaky as free market, the interplay between the forces of demand and supply. But again, it's also part of what we've seen with somersaults, these inconsistencies. I mean, like you pointed out, I quite understand your anxiety. I am also perplexed at this situation where you claim that, you've removed subsidy and that you've left pricing to market forces, and then you're coming out to tell Nigerians that prices won't go up. You can't dictate that to the marketers. Eventually, the marketers will sell depending on how much they bought, and then with the intention of making profit. So the best you can do is to create the environment that makes it possible for them to profit with the least cost. For example, they can fix infrastructure like roads. Of course, we know that, petrol is lifted by tankers and then moved across the country by roads. If the roads are bad, if the roads are unsafe, if the trucks have to, or the truck drivers have to, bribe uniformed people on the way, all of these things we consider part of their cost, and all of these things will influence pricing. So I don't know exactly where. Maybe it's also part of that thing about the Nigerian government and the almost obsessive desire to play to the gallery. This, excessive populism. You want to pander to the crowd. You want to say what people want to hear. the truth is that given the situation we are in today, if the government follows through with its plan to say, oh, we've done complete deregulation, then the government has no powers over pricing at all, no direct powers to fix prices. So, I mean, let's not confuse Nigerians and then raise false hopes, because with this kind of statements now, you're simply creating a situation where tomorrow, if the prices get to manageable levels, the people will come out and they say, oh, government, please do something, because you've given the impression that you're capable of doing something. The government should speak to Nigerians and tell them the true situation, which is to say we are no longer in control of pricing. It's up to market forces, it's up to the marketers. And of course, the marketers, there has to be some kind of union. You can't take away the unions. The marketers will need, they have group interests. So they will also have, I mean, that's why you have an organization like IPMAN. So,
you know the interesting thing, NNPC also came out to give a voice on this. And when I was also reading that, I'm like, what? Why do you still have an opinion?
But in all this, there's even something that shocked me more. I think the presidential spokesman, Nigerian Ngalale, was on national television. Was it? I mean, yeah, it was on national television sometime a few days ago to say that, more refineries will not translate to a reduction in prices. I mean, I don't understand what kind of economics that is.
And I don't understand why we have these spokespersons who give all of this. Maybe he was trying, maybe, you know, I don't know. There are too many inadequacies in our society.
I just hope he's misquoted, because, and that's also worrisome to me. It's truly worrisome that, you know, the government doesn't seem to want to countenance the possibility of even resuscitating the refineries or even building new ones, because
no, but the president spoke when he was speaking to Labour. One of the reasons that made Labour call off the strikes, he said, by December, Port Harcourt refinery will be functional.
Well, the proof of the pudding, as they say, is in the eating. Let's see if it's going to turn the light of the day. So, well, I hope that, because I mean, it's common sense that if we refine this thing locally, it will reduce the involvement of the dollar, which is where all of this leads to. Exactly. And I mean, you have an economy that is over-dollarized, and we are also breaching the law somehow. I listened to a legal expert explain that the act setting up the CBN expressly mandates the CBN to fix the exchange rate. And here you're saying that, oh, you floated the dollar, you've also left it to the interplay of demand and supply.
So where does all of this leave us? Where does all of the you're allowing the naira to be on a free float, and then you also talking about determining what people buy and how that affects like I bought something for 1,000 naira. You want to tell me how much profit I will put on it? Meanwhile, you're not giving me any tax relief whatsoever. But God help us. But now let's get into the National Assembly. One of the trending issues is still on the Akpabio, off your mic. Senate President, off your mic. So now, and Ali Ndume spoke about this and said they are looking at sanctioning Akpabio. He's been saying all kinds of things he shouldn't be saying. Another group came out and said, okay, no, he's been the best Senate President so far, and then listed all he has done. But that seemed not to be the end of that 2 million, check your account or something, because the management of the National Assembly has now denied paying a holiday largesse to senators, contrary to the disclosure by the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio. During the Senate plenary, the parliament bureaucracy said the 2 million it paid to each senator was a statutory running cost of their offices, which was captured in the 2023 budget, and not for a jamboree or vacation as being insinuated. Now, the Senate President had penultimate Monday night, and at the tail end of a special plenary section after the Senate completed the screening and confirmation of President Bola Tinubu's ministerial nominees, openly informed the senators that the CNA, Magaji Tambuwal, had wired money into their individual bank accounts in order to enjoy their annual holiday. Well, in order to enable all of us to enjoy our holidays, this quoting Akpabio on that fateful Monday, he said, a token has been sent to our various accounts by the clerk of the National Assembly. Well, Akpabio had said, amid interruptions from senators who were apparently dissatisfied with this public disclosure for fear of a backlash, the developments forced the Senate President to pause a bit and thereafter withdrew the statement for the record and rephrased the same information. In order to enjoy your holidays, the Senate President has sent prayers to your mailboxes to assist you to go on a safe journey and return. Akpabio has said in the alternative to calm frayed nerves. While Nigerians, however, took to social media to berate the Senate president and his colleagues for allegedly feeding fat on the nation's commonwealth at a time majority of Nigerians were facing economic challenges occasioned by the federal government policy. While some wondered why political office holders would enjoy perks of office to the fullest, why President Bola Tinubu was asking ordinary Nigerians to sacrifice. There's a statement signed by the Secretary Research and Information on behalf of the clerk to the National Assembly, Dr. Ali B. Umaru, said the 2 million payment to the lawmakers wasn't a new development or privilege, but an entitlement backed by the appropriation law for the running of their offices. The attention of the management basically, that's the bottom line of that story, but they are saying that the persistent mischaracterization and misunderstanding of the payment of this 2 million naira allowance to each senator, it should be noted that the 2 million naira is part of the running cost of the office of each senator as provided for in the 2023 budget. He said the allocation for running costs is not a new development. It has been a standard practice. These funds are utilized to facilitate various activities that directly contribute to effective representation, legislative activities, and other initiatives aimed at serving the interests of the people. They said for the avoidance of doubt and for emphasis, the said allowance were budgeted for in the 2023 Appropriation Act as part of the running cost of the office of each senator of the 10th Assembly. Let me come to you, Gochuku.
Well,
so, no, I'm coming. I'm just trying to make sure I gather my thoughts right. So, number one, money has been paid into your account for you to enjoy your holiday. When the caution came in, he now said his prayers that he sent to their mailboxes. That's fine. It's okay. However, let's bring it back to the reality on Garden Gochuku. Number one is that Akpabio, this is not his first time in the Senate as a senator. He was a senator after being a governor, I believe, and then he became a minister, and then he's now a senator. So he's the Senate president. If indeed we're to go what the management of the National Assembly is saying right now, that is a statutory 2 million meant to run their offices. So why was Akpabio announcing it on the floor? Shouldn't he know about this?
You know, Vivian, you see, I've been in politics, and the activities that day is not one that surprised us. In fact, when I heard that it was 2 million, in my head I felt that was in quotes a moderate cost, because what some of these lawmakers go home with outside their statutory salaries are way more than that. But then, in this country at this point in time, all of us, the common man, we're hoping. I came out this morning hoping that somehow, some way, someone would send a mailbox
prayers
to my mailbox. But it's sad that at the point in time Nigerians are made to sacrifice. At the point in time that Nigerians are going into this kind of hardship, that such occurrence would happen. But it would be, it would be hypocritical for me to assume that I don't know, or that we don't know that such things occur in the political and legislative arms of government. It occurs. This just happened because he misspoke, or he assumed that it was not aired, But it goes back to why most of us agitate for the cost of governance and cutting down the unnecessary duplication of office, because for a political office holder, a whole lot of expenditures, unnecessary expenditures, accompany such offices. So if you duplicate these offices, you find out that you increase unnecessarily cost of governance. So beyond just what they had for the prayers they had for their holiday that will guide them for, I don't know if those prayers are prayers for Johnny Message that will guide them for their holidays. Beyond just that, there are so many other allowances that comes up, and you begin to wonder, what special role do they play? Some people go there to just enrich themselves, and why the duplication of the Senate and the House of Reps and all, but this trickles down amongst all tiers of government and all arms of government. And so I feel that Akpabio knows what he did. Whatever is coming up now, we do not expect the CNA to come up and tell us that money was given to them to go and enjoy themselves. No, that's not what is expected.
Right.
But it's just the best form of communication to allay the fears and calm the stormy waters. Interesting.
So from over the weekend, Alain Dume, threatening sanction against Akpabio, that he's been making all kinds of utterances that he's not supposed to make, and maintain the position that the CNA has taken. Another group coming out to support Akpabio, or how he's been the best thing after jollof rice, like they say, bringing that to also bear on the fact that you have a situation on ground where the National Assembly management is coming to tell us is that 2 million is meant to run is to run their office, is statutory. And we're asking, how did it not get to Akpabio's desk and it's been announced as holiday package? What are we missing in both?
And these things are done at great cost to the taxpayer. So the taxpayers have a right to know exactly how much these lawmakers get. I don't think that the clerk of the National Assembly was being completely honest with Nigerians, because, I mean, like you pointed out, Akpabio is not a newbie in the National Assembly. He was in the 8th Senate. He was even not just, I mean, he was the principal officer. He was the minority leader.
Yes.
And so if this was something normal, there wouldn't have been any need for him to announce it. He announced it as if it's like, the kind of thing you announce to children for good behavior. Or you took first position in your class at the end of this term. Therefore, outside of my usual parental obligation to you, I'm going to do X, Y, Z to go out of my way to encourage you. That was the spirit in which that announcement was made. And if you say it's statutory, so Nigerians have a right to also know how frequently do you pay it. Is it that for every time they proceed on recess, they get this money? Or is it that anytime they are done with a major assignment like screening of government appointees, ministerial or appointees to the board of some special MDAs, they also get these allowances? Is that how it's done? How much cost does this impose on the national coffers? And by the way, the defense does this impose on the national coffers? And by the way, the defense that, it's budgeted for, it's no defense at all. The fact that it's budgeted for doesn't make it right. The question is, given Nigeria's economic situation today, is it right for lawmakers to draw this kind of earning at a time when you're telling Nigerians to, please endure because the economy is not in good shape? In the long run, you're going to benefit from this. And by the way, sometimes we also have a tendency to over-demonize the National Assembly. It is for things like this, but it's not the National Assembly alone that is culpable. Think of the president that now has a cabinet of 48 ministers, which is unprecedented since democracy started in Nigeria in the Fourth Republic. And yet we are talking about a president who has, campaigned on the fact that he's going to be prudent in the management of the economy. We are talking about a cabinet of about 70 by some calculation, and then of that number, 48 will be ministers. And then given the fact that, the ministerial nominees are actually being sent to the Senate by installments, what's the guarantee that we've seen the end of this? There are agitations. I understand the Deputy Speaker of the House went to see the pro tem national chairman of the party to say, in the spirit of equity, more slots should be given to the Southeast, because the Southeast has the least at five ministerial slots. So what's the guarantee that tomorrow, since the president has been possessed by power, because he said he was possessed by a certain power, and then he removed subsidy under the influence of that power, what's the guarantee that tomorrow he won't be possessed by that power? And then he said, I've just been struck by the power of fair play, and I'm going to, make things more equitable by bringing on more ministerial nominees from the Southeast. So we are talking about a situation where things are difficult. Look at the list of special advisors even. So I think we should begin to use this as a basis to now have a very serious conversation about the cost of governance in this country. As a country today, do we even need a bicameral legislation at the center? So these are some of the issues. Sometimes, just quickly before we go, sometimes you have a tendency to get, the Bible says something about out of the mouths of babes and sucklings. Sometimes from very unusual quarters, brilliant ideas emerge. I remember it was Rocha Sokorocha, who on the floor of the Senate shocked everyone by saying that, look, he didn't see any basis for having 3 senators per state. And remember, now we are also embracing the idea of the 3-day working week. I think it was also thanks to him many years ago that he said, look, I don't see why Imo civil servants should be coming to work every day. They should come to work maybe 3 times a week and use the rest of the days for farming. Nigerians thought it was just, being genuine, it was trivializing governance. But today, everybody is embracing it in the spirit of, cutting costs So maybe we should have a very serious conversation as a nation about the cost of governance. And by the way, we shouldn't limit it to, by any means to the legislature alone, because it seems to me that even the executive is even more culpable than the legislature.
All right, thank you so much, Ene. So let's wrap up with this. The federal government applies to withdraw the legal possession of firearms case it filed against the suspended Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Godwin Emefiele at the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos. The Director of Public Prosecutions at the Federal Ministry of Justice, Mohammed Abubakar, told Justice Nicholas Weibo that the application followed the results of further investigations made by the government. Justice Weibo adjourned till Thursday, August 17, 2023 to rule on the application. Well, in an interview with journalists after the proceedings, the DPP said a fresh 20 count has been filed at the Federal Capital Territory High Court against the suspended CBN governor. He said one of the charges accused Emefiele of conferring unlawful advantages. Ogochukwu, in the same country, just a few months ago, we'd had this government talking about how he was sponsoring terrorism, how Emefiele was stocking money, how he was stocking arms. And then before us, they arrested him finally. They only saw him with one arm, licensed, by the way, authorized legally to carry that arm. And then we didn't see the dollars or the new Naira notes in Ghana must go. We're not hearing any of that again. Now there's a 20 count charge. And one of the issues on that 20 count charge is what you just heard. I would just like to bring you in here.
You see, this is the Nigerian story playing all over again, and anybody that have behind this story quite different. You know, it's just like when someone wants you so bad to be bad, you know, and looking for every avenue possible, you know. Brother Emefiele, the last picture that was shown there, you can see him on white and with the Bible. So I believe that you can see, he looks like someone expecting anointing from heaven. Brother Emefiele, as he should be, as you don't know if he's in a second, second missionary journey.
And that's King James Version, by the way, the oldest. Yeah.
To show you that the weight he's carrying shows how committed he is to the gospel. But then, aside from that, you can see it's just when they say, there's a saying in the local parlance where they say, not allow government to find you, because if government look for you, they can turn and unturn to ensure that you're guilty. It's not like the 20 count charge. You're withdrawing the arms, that of him possessing firearm, and however you've carried out actions on that basis that have humiliated him, taken him to court, held him in DSS captivity and all, and then you're withdrawing that. And who pays for that actions on him? Those anomalies, those inconveniences. Ideally, if you take such action, Emefiele should be going to court for to institute human rights. Because he has been made to suffer on that count, and then you use it as a ploy to hold him down, and then after some time to have enough time to come up with 20 count charge. So it's we know these things. It will just be overstating the obvious. We know that this is how the DSS have operated over time. They look for something to hold you down until they have something cogent enough to hold you. And now you can understand why they had to engage on a royal rumble with the prison service to maintain custody of Emefiele. It's so sad that our institutions can be this very predictable. But then, I wish Brother Emefiele the best. He had his time at the Sun. What he did with that time as the #1 banker in the country, I think posterity should stand for him. If he did well, let it count. If he did wrong too, let him serve his time. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And so we are withdrawing the firearm, possession of firearms, terrorism charges against Emefiele, I guess, to now to file 20 count charges. And even if you look at the 20 count charges, one of the issues raised, you're asking yourself, was this it? Can the judiciary, can the government institutions ever get it right? Can we ever find a time when the judiciary can be respected or demand to be respected in this country?
Well, I don't see how the judiciary is in the dock over this, but I think it's more like the DSS and the executive branch of government. The judiciary has simply
Let me,
been
a quick
covering.
reminder, Justice Owebo, this same man, signed a warrant for Emefiele to be taken to Ikoyi prison. He's entertaining this case. Meanwhile, the order he gave has not been respected.
You see?
Well, there's a sense in which you also will need to sympathize with the judiciary under those circumstances. The judiciary has no executive powers. It's up
No,
to
but you can demand. You can make. I've seen judges. You come to their court. They tell you when they are not even talking with you. This has to be done before you begin to have another. Because he has entertained. Justice Nicholas Owebo has entertained them so far. That's why I'm going.
No, I think that drama played out the last time they were in court. Now they are coming to withdraw the suit and reinstitute another one in an entirely different
But haven't yet to obey the warrant. Emefiele is still in DSS. He's not in Ikoyi prison.
That's the point. The point is that, look, the blame should be channeled at the appropriate quarters. The prison, the Nigerian Correctional Institution, whatever it's called, the DSS, these are the people who are... The judge has made the pronouncement. The best the judge can do, and not all judges do this. Some judges simply play by what the law says. They don't go out of their way to then, begin to indulge in what people call judicial radicalism. And so... to an extent, I sympathize with the judiciary. I understand its weaknesses. It's part of the executive recklessness. And so, but to the substantial issue you raised now with regard to Emefiele and his plight, well, maybe it's me being oversensitive. I think this whole thing reeks of vendetta. It doesn't seem to me that there is any attempt here to set anything straight. And by the way, for the record, let's also state that by my own reckoning, I'm not a financial expert. I don't see Emefiele as an exemplary CBN governor.
No, I don't think most Nigerians would agree with you as a matter of fact.
Since the Fourth Republic started, we've had, he's the fourth of the CBN governors. We've had Joseph Sanusi and then Chukwuma Soludo, Sanusi, and then he himself as the fourth. I don't think he's an exemplary CBN governor. But I brought this matter up because we are going to enter into the realm of unintended consequences very soon. We are going to see a situation where not very long from now, civil society organizations will begin to call for Emefiele's release or fairer treatment. So we are going to make Emefiele the hero that he isn't.
I think we have already done that
exactly.
as a matter of fact.
So I don't know why the government is playing at this. And remember that the president himself has almost all but pronounced Emefiele guilty. There was a time he was out of this country and then made statements to the fact that the economy, the CBN was in a very bad state, and that the person responsible for this will be jailed or something of that.
Yeah, but he just appointed someone and the Shonibi.
Yeah.
And then where is the CBN right now?
Well,
where are we with it? We are just talking about the Naira and all of that.
I actually, like you were pointing out the role of the court and the judge. I think the judge, the court, the judiciary are allowing this. You gave a direct order. You should, within your powers, ensure that even though they are not the enforcers, but you should, within your power, a body, an institution cannot drastically violate your order and then approach you for any kind of matter. The DSS can be held for contempt of court. I think they are within an ambit of their power. That I've heard of a judge that sentenced a lawyer to 1 month imprisonment because he made noise. Is it Anebe or so? Yes, sentenced him to 1 month imprisonment. So they have that power.
Those who suffer those consequences are usually the vulnerable. Inebe is a lawyer, a civil rights lawyer, as it were.
We are not lawyers, but I have seen lawyers whom you come to their court, they tell you they are not attending to this matter until you vacate. Remember, even before they took Emefiele to court, there was an existing court order not to arrest him and all of that. The DSS broke that, and they literally fought and beat up another government official in the court premises, just leaving away.
The DSS have continued in this way, and it's turning to a pattern. They've done that for both cases of maybe Nnamdi Kanu or so, where you see them where they fight to hold this person, wait outside the court or invade the court. So it's becoming a norm, and the judiciary
they have fought in a case. They fought in the court.
For clarity, let it be known that I am not saying that one should tolerate these activities. Okay. I am simply placing on record the limitations to the power of the judiciary. A judge can even issue a bench warrant, but he has no powers to enforce that warrant.
No, but does the judge have the power to say he will not hear a case if he has been
He has no
disrespected?
such power.
Well, I don't know if he has such powers, but I know that judges do that.
Yeah.
Where they derive the powers from, I don't know. But I
Okay.
know that judges do that. We know judges who are judicial activists right there on the bench. They don't brook.
I like the
Oh
word
yeah, of
judicial
course. There's something known as
They have
judicial
some- I like-
activism.
I like the lie, that
but
line.
whether they have the powers of enforcement, I mean, we've seen repeatedly.
No, I don't think they have the power of
That's the
enforcement.
problem.
They have a
Enforcement, no.
power
So
of
when
saying
you're
you
in the
cannot hear.
premises of you're in front of a judge, the closest thing to that judge is God. After that, the judge can give any pronouncement, and it's law, whether they enforce it or not.
But what's
Alright.
what's the
We
value
need
of
to
a
go.
law if it's not enforced?
Because you still need the executive still need to rely on actions of the judiciary to justify their actions. So
Sometimes they don't. You know, the DSS came out with a very lengthy statement saying that it is not true, that
Okay,
it's even in
gents-
violation of court. It is in violation of court rulings.
Okay, gentlemen, we just leave the judiciary to fix their